What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. So you may have noticed that I like to talk about the best of things and the worst of things, and sometimes I like to talk about both at once. However, not every topic is worthy of an entire top 6 list of things that are either the pinnacle or the pits. So today we'll be rapid-firing through a bunch of topics like Pokemon fossils, or hometowns, or even base stats, I guess, as requested by you, the fans. Although some of them might be good enough for a full list, so I'll probably keep some of them in reserve. So speaking of fossils, to me the absolute best fossil to date has got to be Tyrantrum. I'm not talking about competitive viability or anything, although I have used one and it was just fine for me, but this is undoubtedly the most amazing design they've ever come up with. It's a Royal Tyrannosaurus Rex! Not only does it perfectly align with its dragon typing, but its oversized jaw is not just for show, because it actually gets the ability to power up its biting style moves. So the Lord of the Dinosaurs has some great synergy, and there's a reason that it's in my top 10 favorite Pokémon of all time. As for the worst fossil, it's gotta be Archeops, right? I mean, an Archaeopteryx is cool, but not when you do it like this. It's just so awkward with its frantic flapping around everywhere, and of course, if the lackluster design wasn't bad enough, the signature defeatist ability makes it awful to use in any capacity. So this feathered Aerodactyl wannabe is honestly not even worth reviving at this point. Alright, so we've actually got quite a few requested categories, so let's start with the mythical Pokémon. For the best, I would have to say Deoxys. I mean, it was so different from all of the other mythicals in the first 3 generations, it was super cool to be from space, and it also had 4 distinct forms to make sure that it was good at anything you wanted. Plus, I always had a kind of a soft spot for the Destiny Deoxys movie, so it's easily the best mythical on Earth, even if it's not actually from here. However, the worst is... what did I say in that Fake Legends video? Oh yeah, Zarude stinks. It's definitely the worst. There is not a single actual myth surrounding this monkey in the lore, and it has no specific locations in the game either. And it was just a worse version of the starter from the same generation. There's a reason they didn't make Mew a water-type turtle as well, because that would be a stupid idea, but that's what Zarude went with anyway. Next is fun. Somebody asked the best and worst gyms that would be a danger to people's lives. They range from low-level dangers, like some mild shocks or math equations, to getting shot out of a cannon and stuck inside of a giant pinball machine. But as for the simplest, least threatening gym, I'll have to say Erica's is probably the nicest. It's literally just a flower garden. The most dangerous thing here would be some pollen allergies or like a bee floating by, maybe. But the most dangerous is unquestionably Claire's. She's got magma as the main puzzle of her gym, meaning if you don't play a perfect game of the floor is lava, you will be melted alive. How she ever managed to get this approved is beyond me, so I don't know which of those would be the best or worst in that regard, but those are my answers for how dangerous the gyms are. While we're on gym leaders, people also asked about their designs, their names, and their personalities. For the best design, there are quite a few actually. Like, I really vibe with Alessa's look, but then she got a total downgrade in my opinion. Gardenia looks like she's ready to go out exploring in the wilderness, which is perfect for her, and I really do think that Watson from Oros deserves an honorable mention. But ultimately, I have to go with Nessa. I know she's got a uniform on just like all the rest of them, but it doesn't look like a uniform, which is just impressive, since she's got the extra orange coloring going on and the midriff split. And the streaks of blue in her hair mixed with the golden accents, and even little flotation devices on her feet, give off some great personality, and her design perfectly gets across everything it's supposed to. As for the worst design, it has got to be Sophocles. Yes, I will be including trial captains, and while Sophocles is just a dude in a shirt, my main problem is his face. That may sound mean, but his beady little eyes with no irises are already out of place. However, paired with a giant unibrow, it puts him in a thoroughly different art style. He looks more like he should be from Earthbound, not Pokémon, and when standing next to the rest of the trial captains that look normal, it's all the more apparent that they spent way too long on his accessories and accidentally left the placeholder face on the official model. For gym leader names, we'll stick to the worst side and go with Gordy. What does that have to do with rocks exactly? Gordy sounds more like a super nerd or a custodian, I guess, but it's not just his typing because his name doesn't match his aesthetic either. You really expect me to believe that a dude with that kind of bling and perfect hair has a goofy name like Gordy? The only possible reasoning that I could think of is that it sounds like gourd, which sort of goes with Melanie, which sounds like melon, but that's a huge stretch and even more stupid because neither of them are grass-type trainers. My head hurts with this, so let's cleanse our palate with the best name in Lieutenant Surge. Obviously his name fits with his design this time around, but I just love that everybody includes the lieutenant, giving him the proper respect of serving in a war that we've still never seen somehow. But even without the rank attached, Surge is a great powerful name that's easily understood for an electric-type user, but not overly obvious. It could just as well go on a water trainer, so it's a lot better than calling him Shockley or something that's really on the nose. And when combined with Lieutenant, it makes for an unforgettable name across the Pokémon series. As for personalities, the worst has got to be Byron. He's just a big nothing. It's like they ran out of interesting characters, so they went, hey, you know that kind of boring guy from the start? Well, he's got a less interesting dad, right? And then that was it. And he doesn't even seem to like his son, having passed over him as a gym leader in favor of offering the position to Riley. So he's not even a fatherly role model to look up to, and somehow can even make mining and steel boring, which is even more depressing. But the best is much harder because these are meant to be interesting, colorful characters. However, I think that Clay is a pretty good candidate. He's a strong businessman, being the president of his own company, and even though he started from nothing, he now owns Twist Mountain. But on top of that, he selflessly donated fossils to the museum, and even charged headfirst into danger to battle the Seven Sages at the end of the original Black and White, calling the other gym leaders to join him in the fray to save the Unova region. No other specialist seems to have the fortitude of Clay, and you have got to respect his resilient spirit. Now, there was also the topic of town names, which I've never really thought of before, but with a quick overview, I think Paniola Town is pretty bad. It just feels a little sour in the mouth and sounds awkward to say, without even slightly sounding like it goes with the Old West look of the town they're trying to pull off. And the worst part is that you have to say it twice as much because of Paniola Ranch, too. So I would be pretty happy if I never had to say this name again. As for the best, there are plenty that I love, like Verdant Turf, Aquacord, and Evergrande, but I think the top is pretty safely Hammerlock. What an amazing, strong name! Granted, that name doesn't have a lot to do with the way the actual city is set up, but if you are the Lord of Castle Hammerlock, then it doesn't matter how it looks, people would do what you wanted anyway because it has such an impressive name. Starter designs are next, and I'm not sure that I can separate my bias and say anything but Empoleon. I mean, it's a giant emperor penguin, but it's also clearly got metal popping out to display its unique steel typing, and even a trident perfectly built into its beak. But it's also got the fancy attire with the white lace and the high collar to show off its ties to the French high society. Yet it was still somehow overlooked for Legend ZA. That's disappointing, but oh well, Empoleon is my favorite Pokémon for a reason. However, the worst is another water-type bird in the Quaxley line. I probably hate Drizzile more because it ruined Sobble, but unfortunately Quaxley started off kind of bad as well. Obsessed with its hair for some reason, and then Quaxwell just turned it into a joke with its hair taking up 70% of its head, and its feet somehow turned into flippers despite already having webbed toes in its previous stage. And of course Quaquaval turning into a circus peacock is a horrid outcome, and the less said about its constant awkward dancing the better, not to mention the overused fighting in starter combinations. It brings me no joy to see this line fumbled every step of the way, but I honestly have a hard time finding any redeeming qualities for these Pokémon. 3D graphics is a strange category because it's not really changed all that much. However, I will always sing the praises of how good Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee look. Those games are beautiful, and they run incredibly smooth, even with all of the overworld Pokémon being seen for what they are, even being shiny at a glance. But for the worst, I guess I kinda have to go with Scarlet and Violet. I mean, even the grass can look pretty bad when it fades in and out, Pokémon and characters clipping all over the place, and things just looking out of focus that aren't even that far away. And they don't even have a neat art style shift to try and hide the lackluster graphics like Legends Arceus, so Gen 9 will have to be at the bottom for the foreseeable future. Now, Anime Seasons is fun. I don't think it's too controversial to say Best Wishes is the worst. It's just so bad. I mean, Ash literally just beat a Darkrai in the Sinnoh League, and now he's just an idiot that loses to a level 5 Snivy, or building an entire gym strat out of using only his Palpitoad, and then reeling when it predictably gets knocked out. So this was a huge downgrade from what we just saw in Gen 4. The best is a bit harder, but I tend to think that the Advanced Battle from Hoenn is best. The final Hoenn season with the League is amazing, full of great battle strategies from both Ash and his rivals. And this is also where he got to challenge the first of the Battle Frontier Brains, where he beat an Articuno, showing how capable his team of varying types and levels can be. Plus, the theme song is an absolute banger, no question. And it's not even nostalgia talking, because I grew up with the Indigo League seasons. So you can trust me when I say that Advanced Battle is well worth your time of watching. This category is awesome. Somebody asked the best and worst Pokémon and Digimon that have similar design inspirations. Of course, I love Digimon as well, so that's super fun. For the worst, there are a number of options that we could do, but right now, kind of off the top of my head, I'm gonna say that Cofagrigus and Mummymon don't exactly get across the ideas they were going for, since it's pretty clear that Cofagrigus is not the best utilization of mummies in Pokémon, because they never actually showed us the supposed mummy that's in there, and then Mummymon uses laser guns instead of actual Egyptian weapons, which I know is kind of a trope for Digimon to use guns, but not when it comes at the expense of any actual Egyptian characterization that they could have used. The best, however, has got to be Kyubimon and Ninetales. Renamon's champion form is my third favorite Digimon overall, and everything about its design and lore are amazing. And while Ninetales isn't in my top 3 favorite Pokémon, it is in my top 30, so these majestic multi-tailed foxes are wonderful no matter what monster-catching franchise you find yourself in. Someone also asked about which regions would be best and worst for Nuzlocke, and knee-jerk reaction, I would say that Black and White is the worst because it is so terribly limited in the early stages, with only 2 options on the first route, both of them being pure normal types. And then there's only one more route and a gift monkey to beat the gym. That's a worse setup than Generation 1 and Generation 2, but at least they had the excuse of not having hindsight, unlike Gen 5, but they still decided not to put in the effort instead. However, for the best, it has got to go to Hoenn. You can easily grab a full team before facing the first gym, and at least one of them is probably going to be helpful against Roxanne, and that's besides the starter that you picked. There's not too much more before Brawly, but the way that Hoenn is constructed, you get multiple encounters before both the 3rd and 4th gyms as well, which means by Norman you have tons of Pokémon on top of your team just waiting in the wings. So if by land or by sea, I think it's plain as day that Hoenn is the best place to start your Nuzlocking journey. There were some other suggestions for topics, but because this was pretty fun, I'll likely save up some of those so I can do it again. Which means you better be sure to add your own favorite topics that you'd like to see next time. What do you think are the best and worst for each of these categories? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!